Hi, everyone. You found us. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. This is, I know some people don't know me as Emil. Some do. If you know from reading my columns over the last 30 years, say, oh, Emil Amok. Mr. Amok. Yeah. But some people from my college days and younger know me as Emil for real. Well, this is Emil for real, Emil Amok, Emil Guillermo. This is it's kind of like a private podcast. I mean, I put it out, I do it live. So if you happen to catch us on Twitter or X, it says, oh, Emil's live. And you say, what's Emil saying? You can catch that on X live. And then I guess you can, go down and like catch some old shows. You can also catch us live on Facebook, fb.com/Emil Guillermo or emilguillermo.media, or on YouTube, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Emil Amok, at Emil Amok 1, I believe. Yeah, at Emil Amok 1 on YouTube. So that's all the places. But of course, I want you on Patreon, because that's where I'm going to put all this other stuff, the stuff that you can get. I mean, I'm going to do stuff, more stuff. And the good thing about going to Patreon, patreon.com/Emil Amok, is we don't have an algorithm. We don't have to deal with, you like this, you like the meal, well, maybe you'll like this guy. Maybe you like, no, we don't have the algorithm. We don't have censorship. I mean, on Facebook, if I put something on Facebook and I talk about something political, there's going to be a time when we get close to the election, they'll just cut me off. And that's just the way the algorithm works. So I just hope that you go to patreon.com, we're algorithm free and actually ad free, except for the few bucks a month. $3 a month, buy me a cup of coffee. If I saw you on the street, you'd say, I haven't seen Emil in ages. I'd throw him a $5 to buy a vegan latte at Starbucks or something. Wouldn't you? Maybe. Anyway, so patreon.com, and there's all sorts of levels. You can get my columns, which used to be at the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. The old ones still are, I hope, for a long time, because they're all there, 14 years there. You can also, I believe, you'll catch it at asam.com or asamnews.com. It's supposed to run today, Wednesday, asamnews.com. See my columns there, or versions of my columns there. Also, inquirer.net. But at patreon.com, it's all there. You get the columns, you get these audio things, you get me talking. Occasionally I'll say, oh, I got to give you an instant Emil. An instant Emil? Yeah. Sort of like, cup of noodles, add water, and, oh, he's going to talk about X. The football game, Kamala Harris's speech that she just gave about an hour ago. I'm going to talk about that today. The country over party speech, which I think it just shows you what a wide range of demographics she's trying to bring into her coalition. Not just people of color, not just Asian Americans. I mean, I talk about Asian Americans, WDAAT, what does an Asian American think? But as a former political mentor once told me, hey, there's just a couple million of us. We need all the numbers. There's just not enough. We need to form coalitions, not just with ourselves, other Asian Americans, but with people across the aisle, with Republicans. I mean, that's what I learned from Norm Mineta. And so here, Kamala Harris in action. And this is where, when Trump tries to say, oh, Kamala Harris, you are a communist, you are a social, whatever he says. Ashley says, Kamala the communist. It's nuts, right? Just like Trump is so homophobic, and there he is dancing to the Village People, or really just swaying to the Village People. But Kamala Harris is, see, she's a bridger. She's a unifier. She is a coalition builder, and she always has been. I don't think she really has ever been like a member of the squad. She is not AOC. She is not even, any of the other members of the squad who are less AOC than AOC. Jayapal. Pramila Jayapal is a squad member, but no one looks at. I don't look at Pramila Jayapal and say, "Oh, you're a commie." I don't. She's a competent, professional politician. She has more left, more progressive views. I respect Ms. Jayapal, but Kamala isn't even that. She's much more to the center, much more moderate. Actually, she defined herself today as a problem solver in her country over party speech. And if you haven't seen it, you ought to see it. I was going to play some things from it, but you can probably just hear her best just talk about when she worked at the Senate and had to work in the SCIF, and all the senators, of Democrat and Republican, they had to get down and work on all this top secret stuff. They had to roll up their sleeves and get to work because there was too much at stake. Our country was at stake. And it was serious business. It was hard work. It was her favorite committee. And just imagine Donald Trump and how he respects top secret things, putting them in the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago, making calls to the enemy when he's not even in office. I mean, that's against the law. You can't do that. You can't do that. And he's out of office, and he's calling up Putin. I'm sure they're checking up on hockey scores or, how the Russian soccer team. No, I don't know what he's talking about. This is what I don't like about guys like David Urban, the professional Trump apologist, who go online and say, well, you don't know what he's saying. You don't know what they're talking about. Oh, yeah, he copped his talking about, but they could be talking about their grandchildren. Come on. But that's why David Urban is really kind of like the paid Trump apologist on the airwaves. You just want to throw your pillows at your TV. Like, be real. And of course, he wants to squirm in on all the arguments to defend Trump, but it's indefensible. So there was Kamala talking about working across the aisle with other senators. It was a great speech because it proved the point. Country over party. This is a moment. In a very symbolic way, she gives a speech in Delaware where George Washington, right? He crossed the river just before he was, going to do these heroic things in the name of our nation. Very historic place. Pennsylvania, George Washington. And there was Kamala Harris. And, Kamala Harris, she's gotten back, you listen for the word salad. Look, I'm a vegan. I'm listening for the word salad. I'm listening for her to screw up because that's what people have talked about. That's what people have reported in the past. She's pretty lucid. We've always known that. If you're from California, she's a good speaker, a good politician. And we always knew from the very beginning that she would be the future. We knew that. Obama, when he saw her, right? When he was campaigning in California, he saw her as Attorney General. He knew right away. I mean, that's what people like Kamala Harris, that's the vibe they give off. And guess what? They're not nearly as radical as people think. They're not nearly that ideological progressive that a lot of people say, oh, you're a person of color. Well, yeah, rah, rah, civil rights. Yeah, but I want to solve some problems too. She's very moderate, almost to a fault. But that means she's at least fraternizing with the Republicans, reaching across the aisle and trying to solve problems. And that's a good thing. And that was something that I learned from Mineta as well. I mean, who else, as an Asian American politician, reached across the aisle better than Norman Y. Mineta? I mean, Kamala Harris is talking about, well, if I get named president, if I get elected president, I'm going to name a Republican to my cabinet. Who was a Democrat in a Republican administration? Norman Y. Mineta. I mean, it's been done. It's not a new thing. It's happened. And when it happens, it's a good thing. Because it shows that despite the gridlock, despite the, at loggerheads, there's a path around. There's a way forward. Because there's good people on both sides. Really. That's not to bring back the Charlottesville comment of Trump. But there really are good people on both sides willing to work together. That's the bipartisan model. That's the Harris-Cheney model. That's the country over party model that we're seeing, that we saw in the speech today. And then what really got me is when she starts talking about, America is still that shining city on a hill. Oh, who is she quoting? Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, whom, if there was another Ronald Reagan, if there was a Ronald Reagan on the horizon, Donald Trump would be back hawking Trump steaks on the Sharper Image or on TV or on the shopping network. If there was another person as strong and as viable as Ronald Reagan, as a Republican candidate, Trump's career would be over. He'd go back to TV. He'd say, well, I'm going to get 13 weeks on Netflix. He wouldn't be talking about politics. But he rode into town on a horse called Not a Politician. And he's trying to prove that to people by doing all the non-political kind of things that you don't expect. And some people say, well, let's try that. And then you see how it sinks us. This is what scares me about Trump calling himself Mr. Tariff. Mr. T is Mr. Tariff. He doesn't understand tariffs. He doesn't understand what tariffs do. A country makes something, or, there's products made in another country. They bring that product over here. To bring it over here, a tariff is added to the cost. The companies pay that, but guess what? The companies say, oh, we'll get it back. We'll pass it on to consumers. And Trump is so tariff happy on China and other things, that's going to be like a $4,000 tax. In fact, people, when they see tariffs, they think of it as a sales tax. They've had them in Europe for a long time, these sales taxes. And the most harmful taxes are the regressive ones, are the flat taxes, are the sales taxes, where it's like a flat X percent. In this case, 20%, right on top. Everyone pays. The rich, the poor, it's unfair as hell. And that's Trump. There's just no way you can defend tariffs. No way. But there he is. He's defending it. And you know what? People trust him and they never learn. But hopefully those never Trumpers, those Republicans who are standing next to Harris today, who put country over party, they know better and they will be the leaders, and they will say to all those people who are like down in the ditches with Trump, ready to fight the enemy, they'll say, hey, Come on. You don't have to be MAGA. You just have to be an American, a patriot, defend the Constitution. And that should be enough to get you out of the ditch, away from MAGA, and join these other Republicans who see the light and see that democracy is worth saving. And the only candidate, there's only one candidate who will assure a peaceful transition, who will assure an allegiance to the Constitution. And it's not the guy with the fake tan. It is not the guy with the fake tan. So that was a good speech by Kamala Harris. Hey, I want to take a break for a second to tell you that coming on November 4th, on election eve, I'm going to be speaking at the Marsh in San Francisco. And it's at the Marsh in San Francisco at, the doors open at 6:30, they say. Yeah, 6:30. And 1062 Valencia Street. Doors open 6:30. Show starts at 7. I'm in the middle. I'm the second of 3 storytellers. You can see it in person. Go to themarsh.org and get your tickets there. Tickets are $13 to $35 sliding scale. And there's also a streaming option. Go to themarsh.org. You know, I'd like to see the Marsh survive. The Marsh gives me the chance to work out a story. I don't get paid, but I will take a video and I'll put my video on Patreon. And if you become a Patreon at a certain level, I'll make that available to you. What's more, I'll talk about it. What's more, I'll do it live for you on Patreon. Patreon.com/Emil Amok. But look, I love the Marsh. They gave me a start doing these kind of performances. What would you say these performances are? Well, I'm in a black box. I'm with 100 people and or less, and an occasional fly. And I tell stories. I tell stories. I tell jokes. I make people laugh. I make people cry. I make people wonder, why the hell did he waste his life? No, I just do my thing. And sometimes I do it live. Most of the time it has been live at the Marsh, but this will be the first time at the Marsh live since the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I did a couple of Marsh things solely online from this COVID closet. And some of those things, little bits, the DNA of that, some of that stuff has gone on to other shows like Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, that I took to the New York City Fringe, to the Fresno Rogue Festival, to the Orlando Fringe. And this is the process. The process is I have an hour show. There are very few places to do an hour, but hey, here at the Marsh on Monday, I get to do 20 minutes. And try to get 20 minutes at an open mic. You might get 5, maybe 7. I'm doing 5, maybe. If I get lucky, I get pulled. Got to get selected at an open mic. I'm going to try tonight over at the Deaf Puppy in Manteca, which is, my favorite little local club. But November 4th, I'll be at the Marsh. So get your tickets at themarsh.org. Okay. Show starts 7 p.m. Doors open 6:30. And so November 4th and then also November 18th. I'm doing a portion of Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, Wiley Filipino vegan trans dad. I'm doing trans dad. The show description is Emil Amok had 2 daughters until he had a third. What to do when you lose a son to the culture wars. True story. So come see me do that story. 20 minutes. I'll do an amalgam of things. I'll get you to the point where you say, oh, I've heard him say that. No, you haven't yet. See, that's the thing about live performance. It's live. And when it's live, you just never know what's going to happen. That's the beauty of seeing it, because it's a once in a lifetime thing you're getting, and lucky you. Lucky you. I got hung up about that for a long time. I used to think, oh, I've got this thing in mind. You know, I got this pen, and it's got to be the same pen for everybody, right? And everyone, if they get less than this same perfect pen, that's no good. And I realized I'm not selling pens. I know when it happened, maybe, a few years in to doing this process, preparing for a Fringe Festival, preparing for a show. Like, you go to Orlando, you do 7 shows over 2 weeks. You go to New York, you do like 5 to 7 shows over a week and a half. You go to the Rogue, there I did 5 shows over like 10 days. You prepare. It's different each time because there's a variable. I mean, there's me, right? I think I'm the same. There's the material. It's sort of the same. My interpretation could be different each time. The big variable is the audience. The audience changes. Some people in the audience will get my Filipino jokes. And some people will say, are Filipinos really like that? And this is the thing. It's always going to be different. So if you've seen me in the past, Emil's talked about that before. I want to go down and see. Go down. Go see me. Emil Guillermo, November 4th and 18th. Choose the 4th, because I will be giving you my election pep talk. You'll need my election pep talk, not just to get through my show, but to get through the next 4 years if the right side doesn't win. It's a short pep talk. November 4th at the Marsh. Tickets at themarsh.org/Monday-night. Monday Night Marsh. Get your tickets, click there. In fact, here, I'll just show you where you click to get the tickets. You click, and it's a sliding scale, and you can stream, you can do any number of things, but it's where shall I put this? Well, I'll put it here. And November 4th and 18th at the Marsh, San Francisco. And get your tickets there. Let's see. Here it is. There. So themarsh.org/Monday-night-Marsh-stream. Anyway, that's a website that has tickets. November 4th and 18th at the Marsh, San Francisco. That's where you can see me. And I hope you will, because I just like being able to tell the story and see the reaction I get, because every audience builds a story with me. That's sort of that's been my, you build it with me. You build it with me. Yeah, you do. So I saw the Trump's appearing on Fox. Actually, Kamala Harris is appearing with Brett Baier on Fox a little later. This whole outreach to Republicans. Trump was on Fox with the black woman there. Harris Faulkner, who is she just strikes me as kind of Stepford wifey to me. I mean, I just look at her and she makes you like Omarosa, but she was asking the questions. Trump is really different when he thinks, I guess when he thinks he can sleep with you. When he looks at, I'm just being as sexist as Trump now. I think Trump is nicer to women who he's attractive to, or who he's attracted to, and who find him attractive because he's got power. So there are all these Republican women sucking up to him like, oh, President Trump. And then he would say, oh, you have a very nice voice, sort of like me. And this is the nicest Trump has been. It's not just good behavior. It's because he's talking to women. And yet the real truth is he's a guy who'd rip away the choice from women. He's a guy who says government will have control of your bodies. He's a guy who says where you can go or where you have to go to get an abortion because you're not going to get it in your home state, because he's making it illegal nationally. And then when someone mentioned IVF, he had the gall to say, well, I'm the father of IVF. I'm the father of IVF. I don't know what you're saying. I'm the father of IVF. I don't get it. So you look at those women and you say, oh my God, you can't convince these people. This is my new revelation on these political matters. You can't try to convince or out-talk these people. What you can only do is get more people on your side and go around these people. Go around these people. They're going to keep their opinions. They're going to keep the opinions they hold. You're not going to persuade them. You got to go around them and talk to the people who can be persuaded. And we know that there's about 13% of the voters out there. Just 13%. And it varies from state to state. But there are people who are locked in on both sides, about 45, 42, 42 on each side, locked in. Trump, Harris, and there's like 13% who are up for grabs, who could be persuaded. They're leaners, or they are just independent and could be persuaded. I think we have like 10% who could be persuaded, 3 who are kind of locked in, and then you got like 5% of voters who say, I'm voting for the independent, which doesn't help anybody. You might as well throw away your vote. I mean, it's unless you're doing it to help the Republican. So, tough race. It's a tough race. Kamala Harris working the Republicans who might switch over. But is Donald Trump talking to African Americans? Is he talking to Latinos? Is he talking to Asian Americans? Is he talking to Latinos and Asian Americans and generally people of color? Say Haitian refugees. When he says immigrants are all criminals. Immigrants represent, they're bad people. They represent a genetic problem. When he misquotes the number of immigrants who are criminals. I mean, the number he quotes, I think he quotes a 13,000 number. That's not 1 year. It's not 1 month. It's like for as long as they've been keeping records. That's like nothing. And the thing about Donald Trump is, and Asian Americans know this, he's starting to talk like a dictator. He's starting to talk like, well, the problem is the enemy within. The enemy within. The enemy within. Who would that enemy within be? It would be all those Republicans who are saying, I'm voting for Harris. Not just immigrants. Oh, but it would also be those immigrants. Because you know what? You've heard Project 2020. We talked about Project 2025, where they're going to allow ICE to go in anywhere they want on a suspicion. On that town hall with the Republican women, he assured the Republican women that he was going to end sanctuary cities. Yeah, we're going to get them out. I'll tell you, the other thing that got me is a woman got up and said to Trump, I have daughters who play sports, and we just don't like trans people playing sports, competing against our daughters. You know, they're female. It doesn't matter. Trans, they're female. It's not like a mental thing. And they're trying to say, well, they're so much better. They're bigger. Well, I played sports until I couldn't. And no one was advocating for me to continue playing sports and saying, all those big guys beating up on the little Filipino guy. That's not fair. They should have their own league. Yeah, it's called the normal male league. And, you know, and if I wasn't good enough to play, I shouldn't play. And I didn't. I mean, I got to a point. I played football. I was great. And then I wasn't. Because everyone grew and I didn't. And if these trans women are playing sports and they are women, make no mistake, it's just a different kind of game. And if your daughters can't hang, well, I joined the debate team, and I just think that trans women are women. So, I mean, when this woman was talking that way, I guess I didn't really understand. Sometimes people will talk about a certain thing, or you'll hear it in a certain way, and you'll say, oh, that's what they're talking about? Yeah, well, you know, no one's trying to change. No one changed high school athletics for me. When after I got my bell rung, well, this is another reason why I quit, because I had a concussion and no one cared. And I wanted to protect my brain. But everyone else grew, and they hit hard when you play football in high school. But no one was advocating a different league for me. Trans people exist. They're in our communities. They should be accepted. They should not be discriminated against. That's as simple as it gets. So we had Trump, the Trump women. Oh, today, Filipino American History Month. Well, it started yesterday, continues on. I'll have more to say. But it gets me that we call it Filipino American History Month because it's in October. We only get 2 weeks of it, October 15th to the 31st. We call it a month, but it's 2 weeks. It's just like, oh, it's Black History Month, but it's like the shortest month of the year, February. What the hell? What kind of disrespect is that? So we're going to make hay about Filipino American History Month. Go to my column on patreon.com or go to inquirer.net. Catch my column there. It's October 15th for a reason. That's because close to the time that is the raison d'etre for Filipino American history. A piece of little known history, which I talk about in my column on inquirer.net. Inquirer.net. I talk about the first Filipinos to America. 1587. What? Yeah, read it. You know, this is one thing that Kamala Harris says that got me. Because people want to criticize her for everything. There's, oh, she repeats herself. Oh, she's so repetitive. It's like she doesn't have talking points, but she knows what she's going to say. And she has discipline and she sticks to what she says. And besides, she says what she says in the disciplined way because she wants you to understand. And she knows that people have to hear things again and again and again for things to register, for the communication to be done. And so when she was talking to Charlemagne, the God, she was saying, oh, Charlemagne was saying, oh, should you get off your talking points and just speak? I mean, some people say you repeat yourself, you're on talking points. And she said, well, I'm just more disciplined. Touche. No, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, the basic speech formula is tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them. Tell them. Basic speech formula. Kamala knows that. So I think she's doing well as she's reached out to blacks yesterday. I think the black men want to support her. But I think a few just want to go rogue. Just say, hey, I'm just testing the water. A lot just don't want to be told. I mean, I've talked to some of these black guys. I've done some stories. I mean, I'm kind of surprised at the vitriol they have toward Harris. But it's like, but there's a core group, I think, of younger black males who do see that what she's doing is strategic and she's just trying to get things, trying to solve some problems, trying to do her best. I know. I just think it's sad when you hear some people talk about they're entitled to their opinion. But like I said, I'm of the opinion now that you're not going to convince people. You're not going to be able to talk them down unless they are reasonable. If they're not, the only way you're going to beat these people is to go around them and get more people who support your position to go out there and vote for your candidate. That's the only way. A couple things on my plate. We talked about the Marsh. We talked about, Michigan. All this talk about black men, Republicans. Kamala Harris is all over the place, all the different swing states. But one thing I haven't heard her say, and maybe it's because it's still a fluid situation, or maybe it's because there's no answer. I'm waiting for her to say something on Gaza. And I woke up and I had the TV on. There's a doctor, a California doctor. I believe he was Muslim from California, went back to Gaza, worked in a hospital. I think he had a piece in the New York Times. But he said something that was horrifying, that there were kids who were shot in the head. Could have been shrapnel, but there were MRIs with bullets in their heads. And he said, we're seeing this often. Hard to imagine that this isn't intentional. I mean, it's already pretty horrifying what's happened. Over 40,000 people dead in Gaza. These are surgeons at Gaza hospitals are seeing these atrocities, many of which involve children. And you got to wonder, what is Kamala Harris doing about that? And I don't know what she's doing about that. I honestly, I think she tries to avoid really speaking directly about those issues. But Michael Moore, The intrepid journalist. Our paths have crossed throughout our careers. I think I first met Michael Moore in the 80s in San Francisco when he worked for an alternative paper there before he went on and did his things on the national level. But he writes on Substack. He's a Harris supporter, but he speaks some truth. He says, in the 2000 election, the Biden-Harris ticket won nearly 70,000 of the Arab American vote in Michigan. Since Israel's invasion of Gaza a year ago, the Arab vote in Michigan for the Biden and now you has tanked. That 70% support number in the polls has dropped to as low as 12 in one recent Michigan poll. In the state that Hillary Clinton lost by 2 votes per precinct in 2006, the loss of any of the 140,000 votes you received in 2020 could be catastrophic. I mean, this is a warning sign put out by Michael Moore, who lives or is from Flint. Where's that tiger cap? Tigers are out, right? It's Dodgers or it's the KC and the Yankees at this point, I think, right? No. It's the Guardians. Excuse me, Cleveland. The Guardians and the Yankees, probably up against the Dodgers. But so Michael Moore is just pointing out this obvious thing, and why aren't we seeing more? Michigan's a swing state. We're hardly seeing any outreach. Well, not publicly. We're not seeing them say as much. Now, correct me if you say, oh, she was in Michigan the other. No, she's mostly been in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin. I think she's tiptoeing into Michigan. But she's got to say something about Gaza. And so this is what Michael Moore says to save the Arab American and Michigan vote, because they're concerned about the black vote everywhere, the Latino vote in Nevada. In Michigan, it's the Arab American vote. And Michael Moore says this: please stand with Arabs, Jews, African Americans, and young adults in Dearborn, Flint, and Detroit, and say that you will bring this war to Gaza to an end once you are president. Is it that hard? I saw one thing just before I came on saying that Blinken and Biden are pretty much not talking about it until after the election. They're hoping to have an after the election sort of, a day after plan. I don't know if that's going to help. Michael Moore says you need to join with Arabs, Jews, African Americans, and young adults in Dearborn, Flint, and Detroit, and say that you will bring this war to an end once you are elected. Promise to deliver all forms of humanitarian aid immediately, and that we will help rebuild homes and hospitals in Gaza. I mean, that's really key. You got to stop the bleeding. You got to help right away. Number 3, state that there will be a new understanding with Israel in your administration, one that will lead the way to real peace and a 2-state solution, which will do more than anything else to create a safe and secure Israel. This relationship will require that all U.S. and international laws are to be followed by all countries to whom we give aid. Just yesterday, President Biden warned President Netanyahu that he had 30 days to start letting humanitarian aid into Gaza or else. Michael Moore says that is not acceptable unless President Biden can show us for the next 30 days how long he could last with no food and no water. I mean, this is the call of Michael Moore, a Michigander, to Kamala Harris. And you know she is aware of this, but politicians find themselves often in a place where they can't move. I don't know, we're kind of in a stalemate right now. But she can offer some kind of moral guidance and hope. At least some moral guidance and hope. That's what's kind of needed here. Because I think what Michael Moore is saying is true. Unless there's an outreach, not just to blacks, not just to Republicans. There's some outreach to all the Jews, all the Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, people of color in Dearborn, Flint, and Detroit who want to back her, but need some hope for the people who are being treated so poorly in Gaza. I mean, that is something that has to be addressed. And so far, we don't hear much from anybody. All right, one last thing. You know, I was going to mention Gascon. He's the LA district attorney who's also running. He was the San Francisco district attorney who denied justice to my cousin, Stephen Guillermo, back in 2014. I mean, I don't know if he's going to give the Menendez brothers a second chance or say that, well, this evidence should have been part of the trial. It wasn't. These men should go free. Certainly, there's a big push for the Menendez brothers to go free. But every time that Gascon, George Gascon, the LA district attorney, is asked if he's doing this because the Netflix special or, you know, the movie, the Menendez movie and all that, I wouldn't trust Gascon, who says, oh, no, I'm not. There's better way, you know, there are better ways to be embroiled in a camp. Yeah, this is a popular movie, a popular stance. He's down in the polls. He needs something desperate. So I hope it's not a publicity ploy, but I think it kind of is, knowing the kind of man that Gascon is. And if he's trailing in the polls, well, that says something about his work. I know from his work in San Francisco that I wouldn't vote for him. All right, one last thing on Jean Shepherd. Because this is the day that Jean Shepherd died, on October 16th, 1999. And, you know, I looked up this page. If you don't know Jean Parker Shep Shepherd, October 16th, 1999, he died, born July 1921. He was an American storyteller, humorist, radio and TV personality, writer, and actor with a career that spanned decades. He's most known, I think, for A Christmas Story in 1983, which he narrated and co-scripted based on his own semi-autobiographical stories. He's out of Indiana and actually born Southside Chicago, moved to East Chicago, Indiana, raised in Hammond, and was known for doing these radio monologues, which is how I discovered Jean Shepherd. He also wrote the Wicked Wanda stories in Playboy. I mean, he was a funny writer. And out of New York, he had all sorts of opportunities because he had a great gig at WOR, where he was there from 1955 to 1977. Essentially, wow, until a long time, like 22 years, right? And then what he would do is he'd tell stories, he'd read poetry, he'd read the works of Robert Service, he'd organize comedic stunts. He was a character. And I only know him through YouTube and for the things I've seen historically. But when I've seen him and he did some things on PBS, I always said, there's a guy. That's a radio monologist who just goes on, cracks open the mic, lets it bleed. That's my kind of guy. If you don't know Gene Shepard, you can watch him on YouTube. A gifted monologist and humorist. I mean, he didn't call himself a comedian, but he used humor, and he was just an engaging presence at night when you're home, you're listening, you're maybe needing a bedtime story, needing to fall asleep. Nowadays, people fall asleep to podcasts. Hey, you can listen to this podcast. I mean, you can time shift, and I do this at 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 Eastern, but you can do this anytime. In fact, I regularly fall asleep to listening to my own podcast. But yeah, Shep. And I just had this feeling about what I did here with you. And I said, this is sort of like what I try to emulate. I mean, a Gene Shepard spot on the radio now, too many commercials, for one, or, they would want talk. They would want interactive talk. You couldn't get away with just being the monologist talking. You'd have to say, all right, I'm a monologist talking, and here I am. I'm online. I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/Emil Amok. I mean, that's where you find us, and occasionally live. But I tip my cap to Shep, as he was called. I mean, the way they describe him, is they call him reminiscent of Spalding Gray, reminiscent of, here it is. Shepard's oral narrative style was a precursor to that used by Spalding Gray and Garrison Keillor. Marshall McLuhan, in Understanding Media, wrote that Shepard regards radio as a new medium for a new kind of new kind of novel that he writes nightly. In the Seinfeld Season 6 DVD set, commenting on the episode titled The Gymnast, Jerry Seinfeld said, "He really formed my entire comedic sensibility. I learned how to do comedy from Gene Shepard." That's what Jerry Seinfeld said. Seinfeld was interviewed at a tribute to Shepard held at the Paley Center for the Media, January 23rd, 2012, confirming the importance of Shepard on his career and discussing how Shepard and he had similar ways of humorously discussing minor incidents in life. The first name of Seinfeld's third child is Shepard. So and then here's another guy who our paths have crossed numerous times. Bill Griffith, who does Zippy. Shepard was an influence on Griffith, the comic strip Zippy, as Griffith noted in his strip January 9th, 2000. Griffith explained, the inspiration just plucking random memories from my childhood, as I'm wont to do in my Sunday strip, also as a way to expand beyond Zippy, and Shep was a big part of them. So I just want to add my 2 cents that, yeah, I had this gnawing feeling. I kept thinking about Gene Shepard, these last couple of days, and I looked in the Wikipedia. Oh, this day he died, October 16th, 1999. Excelsior. Shepard fans would know what that means. So that's it. I was going to try to keep this low key today. It's Wednesday. And I'll keep it low key. I'm not going to do laughter yoga today. You can't get it on Patreon. I'll do laughter yogi. I'm the laughter yogi on Patreon. Patreon.com/Emil Amok. Hey, another reminder that on Monday, November 4th and November 18th, those 2 Mondays, I'm doing my Trans Dad show. Not show, but I'm doing a bit. And also giving my pre-election warning. That's at the Marsh, Monday Night Marsh. They call it 1062 Valencia Street in San Francisco. Mere blocks away from the childhood home of Emil Guillermo. Doors open 6:30, show starts at 7. Go catch it. Go to themarsh.org. You see the website, the URL, if you're watching the screen, themarsh.org/Monday-night-marsh-stream. So check it out. Tickets $13 to $35, sliding scale. You can plead poverty. Be my guest. I'm only getting stage time, so support the Marsh. I want the Marsh to be supported. Please support the Marsh. And it should be a good show. Monday, November 4th, and then again on the 18th, 1062 Valencia Street, San Francisco. Doors open 6:30, show starts at 7. Please come see me. I'm with 2 other storytellers. It should be fun. It should be fun. Okay, that's it for me. We like to end with a little meditation. A little meditation, a little loving kindness, because that's what makes the world go round. You put out the love, it comes back twofold, threefold. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time.